I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. This is Jim Gosa. This special program commemorating our flag is presented by the United States Navy and your local Navy recruiter. On June 14, 1777, the Second Continental Congress decreed that the flag of the United States shall be 13 stripes, alternate red and white, and the Union shall be 13 stars in a blue field, representing a new constellation. But because the resolution didn't specify an arrangement for the stars, there were many variations in the early flags. The cross of St. George, a red cross and a white field, accompanied the first English settlers to Jamestown, Virginia in 1607, and later to Plymouth, Massachusetts in 1620. The Liberty Tree was the flag which first symbolized liberty in August of 1765, when effigies protesting the Stamp Act were hung from a Boston elm tree. Later, the Sons of Liberty met under this very tree and others like it in other colonies to plot the beginnings of the Revolution. Then in 1775, the pine tree flag emerged in the New England colonies with the motto, "An Appeal to Heaven." Another flag of the time was a naval flag on American ships in New England waters, which bore a rattlesnake and the legend, "Don't tread on me." The rattlesnake, fair in its warning but deadly in its strike, symbolized the revolutionary spirit and the defiance of the colonists. The oldest colonial flag still in existence is the Bedford flag. It was actually a military flag made in England in the 1600s, but carried at the Battle of Concord, April 19, 1775, where the colonists fired the shot heard round the world, signaling the start of the American Revolution. Probably the first distinctive American flag used in the South during the Revolutionary times was the Moultrie flag, designed in 1775 by Colonel William Moultrie. This flag was raised at Fort Sullivan on Sullivan's Island during an attack by the British. Although no official pattern had evolved, most flags of the time did carry out the red, white, and blue motif in one way or another. The Grand Union flag, for instance, had the 13 red and white stripes and the British Union Jack in the upper corner. It was abandoned as the Revolutionary War approached. The Bennington banner had the familiar red and white stripes and 13 stars arched over the number 76 on a field of blue. This flag flew at the first Revolutionary victory by the Americans and is still preserved in the museum at Bennington, Vermont. But the true stars and stripes that became the official national flag of the new nation had the 13 stars arranged in a circle on the blue field. No one is really sure who designed this flag or who actually made the first one. Francis Hopkinson, one of the signers of the Declaration of Independence, claimed he designed it. He billed Congress for a cask of wine in payment, but he never received it. Popular legend has it that Betsy Ross, a seamstress in Philadelphia, made the first flag, and in fact, historical records show that she did indeed make flags for the government. The story goes that General Washington visited Betsy with the drawings of his ideas for the flag, and she did the sewing of the first stars and stripes. That was the flag, with its 13 stars united in a circle, that was adopted on June 14, 1777. And on July 4th, this was the flag that John Paul Jones, the great naval hero of the Revolution, raised on the USS Ranger, the first time it was ever flown on a U.S. Navy ship. Jones later sailed under the new flag to France, where it was first seen in a foreign port. The British had already seen it on the high seas, for Jones had captured 2 English ships en route to France. John Green, sailing the Empress of China to Macau near Hong Kong, flew the flag for the first time in the Pacific. In 1778, John Peck Rathbun, commanding the Providence, captured Fort Nassau in the Bahamas, where the banner was raised for the first time on foreign soil. Naval hero Captain Oliver Perry's flag was hoisted in 1813. It bore the brave words, "Don't give up the ship," the last command of another naval hero of the War of 1812, Captain James Lawrence. The original Star-Spangled Banner was a flag of 15 stars and 15 stripes. It was the inspiration for a young lawyer to write what is now our national anthem as he watched the British fleet loft bombs bursting in air over Fort McHenry. The time was 1814. England and America were at war again. As the British gathered forces to attack Baltimore, the young lawyer, Francis Scott Key, boarded the ship of British Admiral Sir Alexander Cochrane to plea for the release of an American doctor, William Beans. An agreement was eventually reached, but by this time, the battle for Baltimore was about to begin. Not wanting to risk that they would reveal the plan to attack, the Admiral kept the Americans on board. So as a captive audience, they watched through the night by the rocket's red glare. Key immortalized the moments of anxiety and fear on a small scrap of paper. He called his poem, The Defense of Fort McHenry. As a matter of coincidence, the words happened to fit the melody of the Anacreontic Song, a song that had emigrated from England. Joseph Carr, a Baltimore music publisher, was quick to bring out sheet music of the Star-Spangled Banner in a two-part harmony. The flag itself, with the 11 holes shot in it that night by the British, is preserved at the Smithsonian Institution in Washington. The Star-Spangled Banner was not immediately adopted as our national anthem. In fact, it wasn't until 1931 that President Hoover proclaimed the song as the official national hymn. Hail Columbia, in which Joseph Hopkinson wrote stirring Federalist words to the tune of the President's March, competed with the Star-Spangled Banner for more than a century as our national anthem. Throughout the remainder of the 18th century, there was an endless, unofficial redesigning of the flag. No one seemed to mind the confusion that came about from so many different designs. In 1817, a 9-stripe flag flew in the Washington Navy Yard, while one with 18 stripes fluttered over the Capitol. The Great Star Flag of 1818 had 20 stars for the 20 states, formed into one large star against the blue canton. Then, as now, the stars and stripes decorated everything from clothing to jewelry. There were American flags advertising corned beef, fishing gear, stove oil, and Abraham Lincoln as a presidential candidate. Some flag historians say it was the Civil War that brought on a great patriotic surge over the flag. As Rear Admiral George Preble recalled, when the Stars and Stripes went down at Sumter, they went up in every town in the loyal states. The demand for flags was so great, manufacturers couldn't finish them fast enough. The red, white, and blue suddenly became the inspiration of a great national effort. All at once, the dear old flag meant the Declaration of Independence. It meant Lexington. It meant Bunker Hill and Saratoga. It meant freedom. The flag contained 34 stars at the time the South seceded from the Union. Many people suggested that the stars representing the southern states be removed from the flag, but President Lincoln was determined to preserve the Union and refused to let any of the stars be removed. By 1865, 2 new stars were added, one each for Nevada and West Virginia. It was this 36-star flag that was the first to be flown in a Flag Day celebration in Connecticut. And for the country's centennial celebration, one designer turned out a flag with 81 stars, spelling out 1776 to 1876. The flag grows as the nation grows. A star added each time a new state is taken into the Union. The president usually decides how the stars will be arranged when new states are added to the flag. With 48 stars in the flag, President Woodrow Wilson in 1916 proclaimed June 14th Flag Day as a national celebration, but only in Pennsylvania is Flag Day a legal holiday. The American flag unites the blue of vigilance, perseverance, and justice with the white for purity and the red of hardiness and valor into a symbol of continuing freedom. The red, white, and blue is an everyday sight. At every courthouse, post office, school, and government building, the Star-Spangled Banner flies. It's seen in Jewish temples on Saturday, in Catholic and Protestant churches on Sunday, at scout meetings, athletic events, and parades, on military bases, on ships, on planes, borne by statues, captured in paintings. It's flown over embassies in foreign lands. It's found in forests rippling above isolated ranger stations, as well as atop the Washington Monument and the Empire State Building. Our flag has never flown above another nation's flag in time of peace, nor should another country's flag ever be flown over ours. Of course, the United Nations flag flies above all national flags at UN headquarters in New York City, and the church pennant flies above the U.S. flag while naval chaplains conduct services at sea. It is never flown upside down unless in an emergency, but upside down, it is a recognized distress signal. The flag is flown at half-mast during times of national mourning. It is always lowered at sundown, with few exceptions. For instance, over the grave of Francis Scott Key in Frederick, Maryland, where it flies 24 hours a day. The Star-Spangled Banner is also called the national flag, the national ensign, national color, and national standard. National flag means the flag in any size or manner of display, but the other terms do have certain meanings in the armed services. National ensign indicates the flag flown by ships, boats, and airships. National color is applied to flags carried by dismounted units of the land force. National standard is carried by mounted, mechanized, or motorized units. Although the red, white, and blue has been represented in many shapes and forms down through these 2 centuries, it has always been the symbol of liberty and an enduring love of freedom. When John Paul Jones first flew it on July 4th, 1777, with Washington at Valley Forge, with Charles Lindbergh on his lonely flight across the Atlantic, raised in victory on Mount Suribachi, or with Navy Commander Neil Armstrong when he climbed from the Eagle, took one small step for man and a giant leap for mankind, and placed the Stars and Stripes on the moon. I am Old Glory, born amid the first flames of America's fight for freedom. I am the symbol of a country that has grown from a little group of 13 colonies to a united nation of 50 sovereign states. Planted firmly on the high pinnacle of American faith, my gently fluttering folds have proved an inspiration to untold millions. Men have followed me into battle with unwavering courage. They have looked upon me as a symbol of national unity. They have prayed that they and their fellow citizens might continue to enjoy the life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness which have been granted to every American as the heritage of free men. So long as men love liberty more than life itself, so long as they treasure the priceless privileges bought with the blood of our forefathers, so long as the principles of truth, justice, and charity for all remain deeply rooted in human hearts, I shall continue to be the enduring banner of the United States of America. This special program commemorating our flag was presented with pride by the United States Navy and your local Navy recruiter. This is Jim Gosa inviting you to see your local Navy recruiter or call toll-free 800-841-8000 for information about today's Navy. 800-841-8000. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. This is Jim Gosa. This special program commemorating our flag is presented by the United States Navy and your local Navy recruiter. On June 14, 1777, the Second Continental Congress decreed the flag of the United States should have 13 stripes, alternate red and white, and the Union be 13 stars in a blue field representing a new constellation. But because the resolution didn't specify an arrangement for the stars, there were many variations in the early flags. The Cross of St. George, a red cross on a field of white, was the flag that accompanied the first English settlers to Jamestown, Virginia in 1607 and to Plymouth, Massachusetts in 1620. In 1775, the pine tree flag emerged in New England with the motto, "An Appeal to Heaven." Another flag that came out during this time was a naval flag on American ships in New England waters bearing a rattlesnake and the phrase, "Don't tread on me." The oldest colonial flag still in existence is the Bedford flag, carried at the Battle of Concord on April 19, 1775, where the colonists fired the shot heard round the world. After that time, most American flags bore the red, white, and blue colors in one form or another. The Grand Union flag with alternating red and white stripes had the British Union Jack in the upper corner, but it was abandoned as the Revolutionary War approached. The Bennington banner had 13 stars arched over the number 76 on a blue field, but the true Stars and Stripes, adopted as the national flag, had the 13 stars arranged in a circle. Legend has it that Betsy Ross of Philadelphia made the first flag of that design from drawings by George Washington. On July 4th, 1777, this was the flag that John Paul Jones, the great naval hero of the Revolution, raised on the USS Ranger, the first time it was ever flown on a U.S. Navy ship. Jones sailed under the new flag to France, where it was first seen in a foreign port. The original Star-Spangled Banner was a flag of 15 stars and 15 stripes. It was the inspiration for a young Georgetown lawyer, Francis Scott Key, to write what is now our national anthem as he watched the British fleet loft the bombs bursting in air over Fort McHenry in 1814. The great Star flag in 1818 had 20 stars for the 20 states, formed in one large star against the blue canton. Our flag had 34 stars at the time the South seceded from the Union. Many people suggested that the stars representing the southern states be removed from the flag. But President Lincoln wanted to preserve the Union and refused to let the stars be removed. In 1916, when the flag contained 48 stars, President Woodrow Wilson proclaimed June 14th, Flag Day, as an annual national celebration. In 1960, the last change took place when Hawaii and Alaska joined the Union and 2 more stars were added. So there were 50 stars in the flag on July 20th, 1969, when Navy Commander Neil Armstrong stepped from the Eagle, took one small step for man and a giant leap for mankind, and placed the Stars and Stripes on the moon. This special program commemorating our flag was presented with pride by the United States Navy and your local Navy recruiter. This is Jim Gosa inviting you to see your local Navy recruiter or call toll-free 800-841-8000 for information about today's Navy. 800-841-8000.